The first thing I noticed and was the applause. It echoed through the ballroom before I even reached the entrance. I smiled. Someone else must have been celebrating Valentine's Day. I tightened my grip on the gift bag in my hand and looked down at the silver watch inside. Ethan had admired it 6 months earlier, but refused to buy it. Maybe next year, he'd said. So I bought it anyway. I wanted tonight to be unforgettable. I had no idea. It already would be. I pushed open the ballroom doors. People were standing, smiling, holding up their phones. Then I saw him, my husband, on one knee, holding a diamond ring. But he wasn't looking at me. He was looking at another woman. My name is Olivia Bennett. Until that Valentine's Day, I believed I had one of the strongest marriages anyone could ask for. Not perfect, Rael. We'd been married for 8 years. Long enough to stop pretending we never argued. Long enough to know each other's coffee orders, bad habits, and silent moods. Ethan wasn't overly romantic. He rarely bought flowers without a reason. He forgot anniversaries if I didn't remind him, but he never forgot me. If I worked late, he'd leave dinner in the oven. If I was sick, he'd sit beside me with terrible action movies because he knew they made me laugh. He wasn't flashy. He was dependable. And after growing up watching my parents fight over everything from money to birthdays, dependable felt like the greatest love story imaginable. Every Valentine's Day, we had one tradition. We went back to the little Italian restaurant where we had our first date. Same booth, same pasta, same chocolate cake we always promised to share but never did. This year was different. I wanted to surprise him. A month earlier, Ethan had mentioned that one of his biggest clients was hosting a Valentine's networking dinner at the Grand Monarch Hotel. He sounded disappointed. I'll probably miss our dinner. I smiled and told him it was fine. It wasn't. Because I'd already made other plans. I secretly called the Italian restaurant, reserved our favorite booth for 9 o'clock. Then I bought the watch. Not because it was expensive, because every time we passed that jewelry store, Ethan slowed down for just a second. He never said anything. He'd just look, then keep walking, I noticed. That's what marriage is, isn't it? Remembering the little things. I even took the afternoon off work so I could get everything ready. I wrapped the watch myself, wrote a handwritten card, packed his favorite chocolate truffles. It wasn't about the gifts, it was about reminding him that after 8 years, I still chose him. Every single day. Around 6 that evening, Ethan called. I'm heading into the hotel now. You sound busy. I am. He laughed softly. This client is important. I'll make it up to you tomorrow. You don't have to. I know, but I want to. Before hanging up, he added something that made me smile. I love you. I love you too. Those were the last honest words I believe from him. I spent another hour getting ready. Nothing extravagant, just a dark green dress Ethan once said brought out my eyes, simple earrings, my wedding ring, the perfume he'd bought me on our anniversary. I looked in the mirror before leaving, not because I wanted to impress strangers, because I wanted my husband to look at me the way he did on our wedding day. The Grand Monarch Hotel was breathtaking. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling. Fresh roses filled the lobby. Couples walked past holding hands. A violinist played near the grand staircase. It felt like every love story in the city had somehow ended up in the same building. I smiled. Tonight was going to be special. I carried the gift bag in one hand and the restaurant reservation in my purse. I imagined Ethan's face when he saw me. Surprised, happy, maybe even a little emotional. I couldn't wait. As I approached the ballroom, I heard laughter, then applause. The doors were slightly open. Someone inside announced, "Congratulations." I laughed quietly. Looks like another proposal. I almost turned around to give them privacy. Then I heard a voice, one I knew better than my own. Evelyn. My heart skipped. Ethan? No. There had to be another Ethan. I stepped closer. Slowly, carefully. The room came into view. More applause, more smiles. Then I saw him, my husband, wearing the navy suit I'd ironed that morning. Kneeling on one knee, holding an open velvet ring box. The woman standing in front of him wasn't me. She was elegant, confident, probably in her early 40s. I recognized her immediately. Evelyn Grant, CEO of Hawthorne Capital, the woman Ethan had mentioned dozens of times. The toughest boss I've ever had. The smartest person in the room. The reason I finally got promoted. She looked shocked. Guests around them smiled as if they were witnessing the most romantic moment of the year. No one noticed me standing at the doorway, frozen, unable to breathe. The gift bag slipped from my hand. The watch hit the marble floor with a sharp crack. The sound echoed through the ballroom. Every head turned, including Ethan's. Time stopped. His smile disappeared. The color drained from his face. The ring box remained open in his hand. For one long second, we simply stared at each other. 8 years of memories, thousands of conversations, every promise we'd ever made, all hanging silently between us. Someone whispered, "Who is she?" Another person lowered their phone. The ballroom, moments ago filled with applause, became so quiet I could hear my own heartbeat. I looked at the ring, then at Evelyn, then back at Ethan. My voice came out barely above a whisper. "What? How are you doing?" Ethan stood up so quickly that the ring box nearly slipped from his hand. He took one hesitant step toward me. Olivia, another step. His eyes were wide with panic. This, he looked around the room, then back at me. "It's not what it looks like." The words hung in the air, the oldest excuse in the world, and somehow the one that hurts the most. I didn't wait for an explanation. Not there, not in front of a ballroom full of strangers. I turned around and walked away. Behind me, I heard Ethan calling my name. "Olivia!" I kept walking. The elevator doors were only a few feet away. I pressed the button over and over, even though I knew it wouldn't make it come any faster. Then I heard footsteps. "Ethan, let her go." It was Evelyn, his CEO. Her voice was calm, controlled, almost rehearsed. I glanced back just long enough to see Ethan frozen between us. He looked desperate. She looked emotionless. The elevator doors opened. I stepped inside. The last thing I saw before the doors closed was Ethan running toward me. My phone rang before I even reached the parking garage. Ethan calling. I declined it. 30 seconds later, another call. Then another. By the time I reached my car, he had called 12 times. A text arrived. "Please don't leave." Another. "I can explain everything." Another. "It wasn't real." I stared at those 3 words. It wasn't real. If it wasn't real, why was there a ring? Why the applause? Why Neil? Why Valentine's Day? Nothing about it made sense. I drove home in complete silence. The wrap watch still sat on the passenger's seat. Its box had cracked when it hit the marble floor. I picked it up, ran my thumb across the broken corner, then quietly placed it in a kitchen drawer. I couldn't even bear to look at it. Around midnight, Ethan came home. I heard his key in the front door. He walked into the kitchen slowly. His tie was gone, his sleeves were rolled up, he looked exhausted. "Olivia." I didn't answer. He sat across from me. "I know what you saw." "Good. Then explain it." He took a deep breath. "It was a business arrangement." I laughed, not because it was funny, because I couldn't believe that was the best lie he had. "A business arrangement?" He nodded. "You have to trust me." I looked him straight in the eyes. "I trusted you this morning." Silence. Then he quietly said, "I can't tell you everything." That sentence ended the conversation. If someone truly wants to save their marriage, they don't protect secrets. They tell the truth. I stood up. "I'm staying with my sister." He reached for my hand. I stepped away. For the first time in 8 years, he didn't try to stop me. The next morning, I woke up in my sister Rachel's guest room. I expected to feel angry. Instead, I felt confused. Something about Evelyn's reaction kept bothering me. She never smiled. She never looked excited. She never even reached for the ring. She just stood there, watching, almost like she was waiting for something or someone. That afternoon, I decided to do something I'd never done before. I logged into our joint financial account, not because I suspected Ethan of stealing money, because I wanted to understand what had happened. At first, everything looked normal. Mortgage, utilities, insurance. Then I noticed deposits, large ones every 3 months, $25,000, $30,000, $42,000, each labeled simply executive performance bonus. I frowned. Ethan had mentioned receiving bonuses, but never this large, and certainly not this often. Then I noticed something even stranger. Within 48 hours of every bonus, almost the exact amount disappeared, transferred to accounts I'd never seen before. The names meant nothing: Northline Consulting, Bright River Solutions, Larkstone Management. None of them sounded familiar. None appeared on Ethan's tax documents I'd ever seen. I opened another statement, same pattern: bonus, transfer, again and again and again. It wasn't random, it was systematic. I called my college friend Mia. She worked as a forensic accountant. I didn't tell her everything, only enough to ask one question. If someone receives large bonuses, then immediately transfers them somewhere else, what could that mean? There was a pause. Then Mia asked, "Do you know who owns those companies?" "No." "You should find out. Because if they're shell companies, you're looking at something much bigger than a marriage problem." That sentence stayed with me all afternoon. Marriage problem or a financial problem? I didn't know anymore. What I did know was that I needed someone who investigated facts for a living, not emotions. 2 days later, I hired a private investigator. His name was Marcus Reed. Former financial crimes detective, quiet, patient, the kind of man who noticed details most people ignored. He listened without interrupting. I showed him the bank statements, the proposal video someone had posted online, photos of Ethan and Evelyn, the strange company names. When I finished, Marcus leaned back in his chair. "This isn't a normal cheating case. You already know that?" He nodded. "Affairs are emotional." He tapped the bank statements. "This is organized." For the next week, Marcus dug into Ethan's financial history. Meanwhile, Ethan kept calling, leaving voicemails, sending flowers, writing emails. Every message said the same thing: "Please let me explain." But never once did he actually explain. 8 days later, Marcus called. I found something. I met him at his office. He spread several documents across the table. "The companies receiving Ethan's money don't really exist." I frowned. "What do you mean?" "They're shell corporations. Companies created on paper. No employees, no products, no actual business, just bank accounts." Marcus slid another document toward me. "The money doesn't stop there. It moved again and again across multiple accounts, eventually disappearing overseas." I stared at the papers. "So Ethan has been laundering money?" Marcus didn't answer immediately. Instead, he opened another folder. Inside were photographs. Ethan entering office buildings late at night, meeting attorneys, signing documents, always with Evelyn nearby. Never touching, never acting romantic, just working. It didn't look like two people having an affair. It looked like two people carrying out a plan. Bah. Marcus closed the file, then looked directly at me. "Olivia." I held my breath. He spoke slowly, carefully. "Your husband isn't hiding an affair." A long silence filled the room. Then he added the words that changed everything. "He's hiding something much bigger." For the first time since Valentine's Day, I stopped asking myself one question: why did Ethan do this? Instead, I started asking a different one: who benefited? The answer wasn't me. And strangely, it didn't seem to be Ethan either. Marcus spread every document across the conference table: wire transfers, bank statements, corporate filings, property records, photos. Every piece looked unrelated until he arranged them by date. Then a pattern appeared. Every large transfer happened within 24 hours of Ethan meeting Evelyn. Every transfer was approved through one of Hawthorne Capital's subsidiaries. Every shell company eventually led back to the same investment group. Marcus circled one name with a red pen: Grant Strategic Holdings. "Evelyn's private company," he said. I stared at the page. "So all of this money ends up with her?" Marcus nodded. "Eventually." I leaned back in my chair. Then why was Ethan sending it? I stopped answering Ethan's calls, stopped reading his messages, stopped reacting emotionally. Every apology sounded the same. Every voicemail ended with, "Please trust me." Trust. That word meant nothing anymore. Facts did. Over the next week, Marcus uncovered more than I ever imagined. Evelyn Grant wasn't just a successful CEO, she was quietly being investigated by federal regulators. Nothing public, nothing in the news, but several anonymous complaints had accused her of using shell companies to hide corporate losses. Marcus looked at me. She's been very careful. But careful people still leave footprints. Meanwhile, Ethan kept showing up everywhere. Flowers arrived at my sister's house. Letters appeared in my mailbox. One evening, I came out of the grocery store and found him waiting beside my car. He looked exhausted. His beard had grown in. His eyes were bloodshot. 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking. I almost walked away. Then something inside me said, listen, must not because he deserved it, because I deserved answers. We sat on a bench outside the store. For a long time, neither of us spoke. Finally, he said, I never wanted you involved. I looked at him. But you involved me the day you lied. He closed his eyes. I know. Then tell me the truth. His jaw tightened. I can't. I stood up. He grabbed my wrist, not aggressively, desperately. If I tell you, everything gets worse. I slowly pulled my hand away. No, Ethan. It only gets worse if you keep lying. That night, Marcus called. I think I found the reason. 20 minutes later, I was sitting in his office again. This time, he looked genuinely surprised. He handed me a printed email chain. It came from an anonymous source. The sender had removed names, but the email addresses remained. One belonged to Ethan, the other to Evelyn. I started reading. The first few messages discussed contracts, financial reports, transfers, nothing unusual. Then one message changed everything. From Evelyn Grant, you owe me. Another reply. From Ethan, please don't involve my wife. Another from Evelyn. Then do exactly what you're told. My heart began racing. I kept reading. One message stopped me cold. Remember Chicago? One phone call and your entire career disappears. I looked up. What happened in Chicago? Marcus shrugged. I don't know yet. But whatever happened, she's using it against him. 2 days later, Marcus found the answer. 8 years earlier, before Ethan and I were married, he had approved financial paperwork for a development project in Chicago. The paperwork contained a mistake, a serious one, not fraud, negligence. The company corrected it before anyone suffered financial loss, but Ethan had signed the original documents. Marcus explained quietly, if those papers became public, right, he could lose his professional license. I frowned. That's it? Marcus nodded. For most people, yes. But someone like Evelyn only needs enough leverage to make another person afraid. The next batch of emails confirmed everything. Evelyn had threatened to expose the old mistake, destroy Ethan's reputation, end his career, unless he continued moving money through the shell companies. Then came the email dated February 12th, 2 days before Valentine's Day. The proposal happens exactly as planned. Smile for the cameras. After that, we're finished. I read the sentence 3 times. The proposal, it wasn't romantic, it wasn't spontaneous. It had been planned, scripted, part of whatever game Evelyn was playing. Marcus folded his arms. I think she wanted witnesses. Witnesses? He nodded. A public proposal creates headlines. It creates a story. And while everyone talks about romance, they stop looking at financial records. I felt sick. So Valentine's Day was a distraction. Exactly. I leaned back in my chair. Everything I'd believed since that night suddenly shifted. Ethan hadn't proposed because he loved another woman. He proposed because he believed giving Evelyn what she wanted would finally buy his freedom. He had betrayed me. Not physically, emotionally, completely. He chose to protect his career instead of trusting his wife. That decision destroyed our marriage. Marcus closed the file. I don't think Ethan ever intended to leave you. I looked at him. It doesn't matter. Oh, he still chose the lie. Marcus nodded. Yes, he did. The next morning, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost ignored it. Instead, I answered. This is Olivia. A calm female voice replied. Mrs. Bennett? Yes. My name is Special Agent Rebecca Collins. I'm calling from the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Every thought in my head stopped. She continued. We've been investigating Evelyn Grant for over a year. My grip tightened around the phone. Then she said 7 words that changed everything. We believe your husband is our key witness. I didn't answer Agent Collins immediately. Instead, I stared out the window of my sister's apartment. The city looked exactly the same. Cars moved, people hurried to work. Someone walked their dog across the street. It was strange how the world kept moving, even when yours had stopped. Finally, I asked the question that had been haunting me for days. If Ethan is your key witness, why are you calling me? Agent Collins answered without hesitation. Because Evelyn trusts him. And she has no idea. He's no longer working alone. 3 days later, I sat inside a federal office with Marcus and 2 FBI agents. Spread across the conference table were contracts, wire transfers, emails, and surveillance photos. Agent Collins pointed to one document. We've been trying to connect Evelyn Grant to these shell companies for 18 months. But every time we get close, someone destroys the evidence. She looked directly at me. We believe she'll try one last transfer, and she'll use Ethan to do it. I swallowed. So what do you need from me? She slid a folder across the table. We need her to believe your marriage can still be saved. The plan sounded impossible. Ethan would contact Evelyn. He'd tell her Olivia was willing to forgive him, that he wanted to repair his marriage and move on. To celebrate, he would invite Evelyn to a private Valentine's charity dinner hosted by Hawthorne Capital. She would think it was another opportunity to move money. In reality, every conversation would be recorded, every document monitored, every guest watched. It wasn't just dinner, it was a sting operation. When Ethan arrived at the FBI office, he looked like a completely different man. His shoulders slumped. His confidence was gone. The moment he saw me, he stopped. I don't deserve for you to be here. No, you don't. Silence filled the room. Then he quietly said, I'll tell them everything. And he did. For nearly 4 hours, every transfer, every fake company, every threat, every document he had signed, because he was terrified Evelyn would destroy his career. When he finished, he looked at me. There wasn't a single day that I stopped loving you. Tears filled his eyes. I just stopped believing I deserved your trust. I answered honestly, and that's when you lost me. The following Friday, the charity dinner began. Crystal glasses sparkled beneath enormous chandeliers. Executives laughed. Waiters moved quietly between tables. Everything looked elegant, normal. Evelyn arrived wearing a black evening gown. She greeted Ethan with a confident smile. You handled your wife. Ethan nodded. It's over. She smiled. I knew you'd make the right decision. Those words were all the investigators needed. Over the next 30 minutes, she discussed offshore accounts, property transfers, new shell corporations. She believed no one was listening. She was wrong. Every sentence, every signature, every instruction was being recorded. At exactly 8:17 p.m., Agent Collins stood from a nearby table. She calmly displayed her badge. Federal Bureau of Investigation. The ballroom froze. Within seconds, detectives surrounded Evelyn. She looked at Ethan in disbelief. You set me up? Ethan didn't answer. He simply lowered his eyes. For the first time, she realized she no longer controlled him. As agents escorted her away, she shouted, You'll lose everything. Ethan finally looked up. I already did. The investigation lasted several months. Financial experts traced millions of dollars through the shell companies. Executives testified. Accountants cooperated. Victor Hale and several associates accepted plea agreements. Evelyn Grant was convicted of financial fraud, conspiracy, money laundering, and witness intimidation. She received a lengthy prison sentence. Ethan wasn't innocent. He had signed false financial documents. He had helped move money. He had lied repeatedly. Because he cooperated from the beginning of the investigation and provided critical evidence, the court imposed probation, community service, heavy financial penalties, and the permanent loss of his executive position instead of prison. Justice wasn't perfect, but it was honest. Several weeks later, Ethan asked to meet me one last time. We sat on a park bench where we used to walk our dog. No lawyers, no investigators, just two people saying goodbye. He handed me a small box. Inside was the silver watch I'd bought him for Valentine's Day. I had it repaired. I don't deserve it. I gently closed the box. You don't. I pushed it back toward him. I bought that watch for the man I thought you were. He nodded slowly. I'm sorry. I know. I hope someday so you can forgive me. I smiled sadly. I already do. His eyes widened, but forgiveness doesn't rebuild trust. And without trust, then there isn't a marriage left to save. Neither of us cried. Some endings don't need dramatic goodbyes. They just need the truth. 1 year later, a year after that Valentine's Day, my life looked completely different. I left my corporate job and started a financial compliance consulting firm, helping small businesses recognize fraud before it destroyed them. Ironically, the worst chapter of my life became the reason I found my purpose. Business grew faster than I ever expected. I traveled, made new friends, learned to enjoy quiet mornings again. Not because I had forgotten the past, but because it no longer controlled me. People still asked about Ethan from time to time. I never spoke badly about him. I simply told the truth. He made terrible choices, and he paid for them. As for me, I finally understood something that took years to learn. The hardest part wasn't watching my husband propose to another woman. It was realizing he'd stopped trusting me long before he stopped loving me. If you walked in on your spouse proposing to someone else, but later learned they were being blackmailed, would you forgive them, or would the betrayal still be too much? Let me know what you would have done in the comments.